Hello and welcome to Hearted Mustard. I'm Emily Precious, and this is my space to talk about me. Not because I love myself, probably the exact opposite. This is a place for me to talk about my thoughts and feelings as a form of self therapy. I was born with two heart defects and have had open heart surgery. The surgery was called a Mustard's procedure, hence the title of this, Heart of Mustard. I'm going to be covering various topics about my life and how they're affected by my heart. This is for anybody who lives with a hidden disability or illness, or anybody who knows somebody like that. Having said all that, might just be that you're curious, and that's okay too. So this episode is going to be about my heart defects. I have two heart defects. One is called transposition of the great arteries. It's sometimes called transposition of the great vessels, but it's TGA for short. The second defect that I was born with was a ventricular septal defect, or VSD for short. The two of these actually helped each other. It meant that I was able to survive long enough for them to realise that there was something wrong with me and to do something about it. So I will talk about the VSD first, the ventricular septal defect. I think that is the simpler and possibly more common heart defect. I'm not entirely sure. I will just say, though, before I go into this any further, I am not clinically trained, medically trained in any way. This is my understanding personally of my heart defects. What I say might be wrong, and these videos are not for any sort of medical purposes. These are just my thoughts and feelings and opinions on this. Please, if I do get something wrong, it's just my understanding that is slightly incorrect, so don't shoot me. Okay, the VSD. That is basically a hole in the heart. As I understand it, you can get holes in your heart in various places in your heart, but your heart has four chambers in it. It has the top two, which are called atrium, and the bottom two called ventricles. You might remember this from school. So a ventricular septal defect is, as you would expect, something to do with the bottom two chambers because they're ventricles. And it's actually a hole between the wall that goes between the two ventricles. So you have your right ventricle and your left ventricle, and the wall between them, there was a hole in it. I don't know how big the hole was. I don't know if there was just one hole or multiple holes. I don't know. But that hole was what saved my life, basically. You'll understand a bit more when I go into the TGA. A lot of people, they automatically assume that, that they would want to close that hole up. But as I say, that was what was actually keeping me alive. So they wanted to make that hole bigger. One of the first procedures that I had done was when I was 6 weeks old, and it was called a balloon septostomy, I believe. And the way that I understand it is that there was a hollow tube. I don't know what they call them, some medical term for them, but it had a little deflated balloon on the end. And that it went, this is going to sound really weird, so I will just backtrack a second. There are veins and arteries in your body. As I understand it, you can go up a vein. And so they used my veins to go up into my heart. The vein that they use, the easiest way to access it is from your groin. I'll go back to where I was. I had this balloon and tube thing inserted near my groin, and that was pushed all the way up into my heart. And it was then positioned in my heart so that the balloon was in the hole. And the balloon was then blown up, hence why they needed a hollow tube. Again, this is, I don't suppose it is, but in my head, there was a little party balloon on the end of it and somebody outside of my body was blowing it up. I'm sure it was more technical than that, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. This was the late 80s. So that balloon obviously expanded and it made the hole bigger. I don't know how much bigger it made it. I don't know if it got rid of the entire wall between the two ventricles. I'm not entirely sure. But the reason for them doing that was about the blood flow. So I'll go into now what was transposition of the great arteries. In order to understand that, though, you need to understand the way that blood moves around your body and gets pumped around your body. As you will know, your heart is a pump and it is pumping the blood all around your body. In my head, it's like an infinity symbol or a figure of 8. You've got those loops either side and then it crosses in the middle. Where it crosses is your heart. Around one of those loops, you have your blood that goes from your heart to your lungs and then goes back from your lungs back to your heart. Then it crosses over in your heart and that same blood then goes around your body. And then it comes back to your heart to cross over again and go back to your lungs. The reason why it does this is all to do with oxygen. So, blood that starts in your heart, let's say, for instance, it doesn't have oxygen in it currently, or very little oxygen. So, it needs to get oxygen in it. And the way that it does that is it goes to the lungs. That's why you have all those little branches and things in your lungs so that all these blood vessels, capillaries, I think. Again, that might be wrong. I might be telling you a lie there. So your blood goes from your heart to your lungs and it picks up oxygen. And the blood then goes back to your heart, now full of oxygen. And it now has to go around your body because your brain, your muscles, your organs, everything in your body needs oxygen to live, survive, to do whatever it needs to do. It needs oxygen. And so that oxygen-rich blood leaves your heart and goes around your body. And because all your organs and your muscles and everything are collecting this oxygen out of your blood to use it themselves, your blood then doesn't have an awful lot of oxygen left in it. It has to go back to the heart to get pumped to the lungs. So this is that cycle that happens all the time. In a transposition of the great arteries, that means that the two main arteries that go into your heart, normally, again, you'll have to perhaps think back to school or maybe Google it. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll get a picture to show you a normal heart. The arteries, they cross over. And that is how a normal heart looks. In my heart, and what a transposition of the great arteries means, is it basically means that they are the wrong way round. They don't cross over, they just sit next to each other. That means, if we go back to thinking of our infinity symbol or our number 8, rather than these two blood flows crossing, they don't cross. Because these two arteries that are supposed to be crossed in my heart are not crossed, these two systems are not interacting with each other. They are just two circles, effectively, that are not linked in any way and do not touch or interact. What that means is that I have deoxygenated blood. Let's start at the same place that we were before. Deoxygenated blood, it wants oxygen, but because it can't cross through my heart, because the systems are not naturally crossed, the deoxygenated blood was actually going around my body. Now, as you can imagine, for your body that wants oxygen and needs oxygen, and to be getting blood that doesn't have oxygen in it, that is very dangerous. On the other side, on the other circle, as they are now, because they're not crossing over, I have blood that has just come from the lungs that has loads of oxygen in it, but it can't cross over in my heart to go around my body. So it just goes back to my lungs. Oxygen-rich blood is going from my heart to my lungs, to my heart, to my lungs. And the deoxygenated blood is going from my heart, body, to my heart, around my body, to my heart. You now might be imagining why the hole in my heart was so important. The hole actually meant that some of the blood would mix. It would cross over. Some of the deoxygenated blood that was just going around my body that really needed to get oxygen in it was actually able to pass through that hole and to get into that other circle of blood flow. And likewise, the opposite way, some of the oxygen-rich blood that had been going to my lungs was able to get into the blood that was going around my body. However, there wasn't all of the blood wasn't mixing. When I was first born, they didn't know. This was the late 80s. I don't know what medical technology was like, but obviously not as advanced as it is now. And my mum wasn't aware that there was anything wrong with me. And actually, the doctors let me go home with my mum, despite the fact that in the hospital, I had turned blue. Now, the reason that I turned blue was because my body didn't have enough oxygen in it, because there wasn't enough blood that was passing through my heart to go around my body. And it wasn't until I was 6 weeks old that somebody looked at me and realised there was something seriously wrong. And I then got taken off to hospital, which is where one of the first things that they did was this balloon septostomy that I spoke about, with the hollow tube and the party balloon going on in my heart. They expanded the ventricular septal defect to create that bigger hole so that more blood could pass through and get to where it needed to be. So rather than these two blood flows just being two circles on their own, they were actually able to mix and they were able to touch. And that is where we get the start of the infinity symbol, or the figure of 8 that I was talking about in a normal heart. So we're then at that point where they've done something to help. However, that has not fixed the problem. And how long am I going to live or survive without having further interventions? What operations were available? What was the likely outcome? What was the life expectancy? What was going to happen? And that is what I think I will talk about in another video, to talk about my procedure, the open heart surgery that I had. Yeah. Thanks for listening to me today. I do really appreciate it. Please subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you're supposed to do on all these socials. You will find me pretty much everywhere, either heart_of_mustard or heart of mustard on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and my website is heartofmustard.co.uk. On there, I am wanting to get some merchandise with my branding, but also for the congenital heart defect awareness as a whole. So please do check that out. If you have any questions or comments from what I've been talking about today, or anything that's popped into your head about it, do get in touch, comment, or DM me on your platform of choice. I will be reading everything that everybody sends to me. So please do get in touch. Thanks again. Bye for now.